Good afternoon. How's it going, everybody? Nice to have you. Those who can join, great. And those who will join afterwards, welcome, welcome. Thought it was a good time to chime in here. Beautiful. So I thought it was a good time to chime in here and take a look at what's going on with the markets right now. There is a changing dynamic that I see unfolding, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. So the long signal that we had on gold, it's looking pretty good. Let me just shrink me up here, okay? If you remember, we were talking about this long signal here that we had on the 4-hour chart. There you go. Here is the long signal down here based on the RSI, okay? A double tap of a weekly demand zone, RSI above or at 40, but just above 40. That was the long signal, okay? Here was the trade setup. Bulletproof target has been reached, so now the trade is bulletproof, meaning no risk, and target is higher at 35.46. So far that's looking pretty good. The only thing is that if you open up the daily chart, you can see we're inside of a supply zone here, okay? So this is an area of supply on the daily time frame that we should be aware of because we could start seeing a move to the downside from this area, okay? I don't think it's going to be a big one. It'll probably be short-lived and then a bigger move to the upside because remember, down here we have institutional demand coming in on a weekly time frame. And so this is only supply on a daily time frame. So weekly is more powerful than daily. So I expect the buying that's coming in from down here to provide such an amount of force that it will eventually break through this area of supply and cause price to go up. Okay, so with that being said, with things setting up for gold to make a move here, there's a changing dynamic that I'm seeing here with the euro and the pound. So, and Aussie too, okay? We were looking at Aussie and we were looking at how price was topping out here. Okay, we have an institutional area of supply being contacted on the monthly time frame. And so we were watching for a short signal. And remember, I was telling you we weren't getting the move that I was wanting to see. Okay, we switched it down to the 1-hour time frame. You remember we were looking at this. And we were looking for a signal. It never produced a signal, okay? This was a high here on the daily chart, and there was a high here too. But, you know, we got the initial drop and the rally, but look at how low RSI was. It wasn't near the 60 point, okay? Did it produce a lower low than here? Yes, it did, but that's it. That's all it did, and then it started climbing back up again. And again, with this high, right, we have these moves here. And again, this move to the upside, not producing a very good RSI reading here. So we were getting a lack of signals here to take a trade to the downside. And so with that being said, there was no chance, excuse me, no chance to get into a short position. And good for that because so far we're not seeing that move to the downside that was expected from this supply. Could it still be produced? Sure, but we could also see this zone, this monthly supply zone be broken through and price head higher. We were looking at Aussie CAD for a potential short trade. That would require the Aussie to be weak and the Canadian dollar to get stronger. Still holding that daily area of demand, so that hasn't broken through yet. And Aussie Japanese yen We suspected price was going to move to the downside, but there wasn't much of a trade here. We got a 4-hour area of demand that we are watching for it to be removed, but it still hasn't done anything. Euro, on the other hand, this is what I wanted to talk to you about, guys, about. So on the daily chart, we were looking at this price action, and it wasn't producing anything interesting for us to take a trade off of. We know that recently price spiked up through a monthly area of supply. This was a supply area that was created by the institutions. I can show that to you right back here. Okay, this is the supply area that we located on the chart. Okay, very important area of selling by the banks. And as you can see, they came up and tested that area of selling not once, not twice, but 3 times. All right. And usually after 3 tests of a supply, usually price breaks through it. Okay. And, you know, we've also noticed that with this latest drop in price, it reached an RSI of 40, and we got a move to the upside that took out the previous highs. Very interesting. So we got a spike up through that monthly supply, but then price came immediately back down and closed below it. So so we didn't consider at this time that this monthly supply had been removed. Okay, it traded through it but came right back, so we're not looking at that as that zone being removed. But now we're getting some bullish price action here. So we had the lack of a move to the downside, lack of a signal being produced for a move to the downside. So we've held off on going short, even though it was looking pretty good and it was looking like it was setting up for a move to the downside. We were just not getting the right signals, okay? And so throughout these live sessions, we've been talking about these charts. We've been examining them together. One of my goals for doing this with you guys was to take you through the process that we use here at the school, White Oak FX, how we apply our concepts and principles to the chart to do the analysis. And then we watch and observe price action to determine what is likely going to happen, if there's any trade signals, or if we should be sitting on the sidelines. And most of what we've been watching has been telling us to sit on the sidelines. And I'm glad that we did, because a lot of people were getting in short on the euro. When I scan through and take a look at what people are saying about the euro, a lot of people were getting in short the euro. Okay, with this recent drop here on the daily time frame, it was looking bearish. Yes, I know it was looking bearish, but when you know what to look for, when you know what the banks produce when they're about to drop price and they don't produce it, then you know something else is going on. So now we're getting a bullish move here. Okay, so this is quite significant. Now, are we going to break up and break through that monthly supply? That's a possibility. Okay, that's a possibility. So very bullish, and so I'm going to be watching for that. I'm going to be looking for a potential long trade now. Okay, potential long trade. We've got the RSI on this low here on the monthly, hitting the 40 mark, which tells us that, that tells us that that could be the bottom here, the lowest point for the euro for the next long while. All right. A weekly time frame, we never got that drop to the weekly demand zone, which is just too bad, because that would have been the ideal spot. And you know, I was looking for a long trade from here. This is the spot I was watching for a long trade. I would have loved for a price to come down here, because I would have been more than happy to take long trades from there. But bullish engulf here on the weekly time frame, that's not too bad of a foundation. I just much rather have a foundation be an institutional buying zone as opposed to a bullish engulf. But I'm going to keep my eyes open for a potential long there. Euro Aussie, we were watching for a long signal here. It was produced. I thought it was going to drop lower, so I thought I had some time to take my family down to the city, but it got triggered way before I even got a chance. Okay. But the good news is that we're contacting an area of supply here on the daily time frame. If you could take a look here, you'll see I have a supply area drawn. Okay. And some of you that may be new to us are looking at the charts and you're seeing a bunch of rectangles drawn all over the charts. They're not just rectangles. They are institutional buying and selling areas. Okay, the institutions are what drive the price in the markets. So we want to follow along with their buying and selling. If we can follow along with their buying and selling, then we can jump on board and take trades alongside them. Okay, so if you look at the weekly time frame, I had this rectangle drawn here because this was institutional buying, which means if price drops down into this area, we expect them to start buying. And as you can see, we got price to drop into that area, and now we're starting to see the buying taking place. So Euro Aussie is a good example of looking at markets to correlate and to discover what direction the major pairs are going to go in. So Euro Aussie is suggesting a move to the upside on the euro, and so far it's looking pretty good. And the other one I was looking at was Pound Aussie. I was watching for price to come down into this area here. This was the institutional buying zone that I wanted price to come down into. It fell really, really short, really close to hitting the alert that I had set here. Fell short of it and is now reversing to the upside. So we'll wait and see what happens with this and see if it produces any other type of signals. I'll have to investigate on the lower time frames to see what's taking place here. Okay, but price came down to the weekly area of demand, same thing that we had on the pound. This is an institutional buying zone here. So price rallied, came back down to the buying zone, and now we're starting to see the buying taking place. My conservative weekly target is at 2.12. And when I write on my chart weekly target, that means the target is based on analysis we are doing on the weekly time frame. Okay. US CAD. So with that being said, euro suggesting upside, pound suggesting upside, gold suggesting upside. That leads us to suspect that dollar is going to be dropping. And remember what we have here on the monthly time frame. Supply created, demand was removed, so that means selling is the major theme that's in play right now, is the major storyline that's playing out. I will point out that on the 4-hour time frame, it looks like we're getting a new area of selling created here, okay, which suggests to me that if price consolidates and rallies, we could see a continued move to the downside from this area. So I'll be watching for short signals off of here. Okay, good spot to watch for short signals. So I could label that short signals from here. So when price gets up there, I'll be watching to see if there is a signal on the lower time frame that I can take part in this move to the downside. So first, this zone has to become valid. It's not valid just yet, but soon it will be valid, and then we'll be looking for a short trade. Okay, I should also set an alert like that. Alert. Oh, once per bar message. All right. 4-hour area of supply about to be hit. Look at the 15-minute chart for a short entry period. Create. That's it. Simple as that. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. Happy Wednesday, Zek. US Swiss. Similar situation. We had a long signal produced here on the daily time frame. It produced a nice move to reach our daily target. Daily target got hit, and now we're starting to see it decline. Okay, this was somewhat risky because we were seeing evidence to suggest that the dollar could get weaker. So this retracement was, it was going against the overall larger picture of what the dollar was likely going to do. Okay, we had targets above. If it was going to build more momentum to reach institutional supply before the sell-off, then these targets were what we were aiming for. But it doesn't look like it's going to get up there. Okay, doesn't look like it's going to get up there. So we're going to watch this to see how this plays out. Again, maybe it's too early. Maybe there is going to be a continued move to the upside. We do have to take into consideration that the first time price came down to this zone, RSI was extremely weak. Okay. Now it's producing a little bit higher of an RSI, not quite at 40, but what could be in the works is something like this before it actually rallies. Okay, I'm not gonna ignore that possibility. It is a strong possibility. Okay, but overall, I mean, U.S. dollar, Japanese yen. Okay, I was telling you this before, and I'll mention it again because I want you to understand the logic that I'm applying here at the chart, so that later on, when you see how things play out, you'll be able to connect the logic with how things eventually played out. Okay, so the logic here is that we're looking at a monthly time frame. We are talking about the RSI here. Look at the last time RSI reached 60 on this rally. This suggests a larger move to the downside. Okay, so we got basing, which basically provided a short-term rally on the lower time frames. And we had a long signal here, worked out to perfection. Long target here, and look at that. Target reached, and now look at what's happening with price, okay? And again, our target was based on analysis we were doing on the daily time frame, okay? So now it's starting to move to the downside, and within this move to the downside, a 4-hour area of supply was created. Price rallied up into it, and now it's using that area to drop price. Now, this could be a temporary drop, right? For maybe a larger move to the upside. Again, look at this test of the weekly. RSI was weak, but just because it's weak, it doesn't mean that it needs to garner strength for a move to the upside. It could also be that this move down is telling us that this zone is weak, and the next drive lower could break through the zone, causing price to drop even lower. So timing is going to be interesting here because gold looks like it's ready to take off to the upside. Okay, I look at gold and it looks like once that daily area of supply is taken out, folks, that's basically telling me that there's nothing to stop price from heading higher. So in terms of timing, I'd be looking at that as a sign that things are going to move pretty quickly. So, when we're talking about the US Swiss and whether or not this RSI is an indication that momentum needs to be built before it can go higher, this may be that this zone is going to start breaking. Okay. So some crucial information for you there. All right. Bitcoin. Which chart are you talking about, Burneth? You're asking, do you consider daily downtrend not broken? Are you talking about the US dollar, Japanese yen? If you're talking about the US dollar, Japanese yen, we never considered this to be a downtrend, okay? This was never considered to be a downtrend. We have very specific rules that we use to determine if there's a downtrend or not. A downtrend has to have certain things in play, There has to be significant selling coming into play. There has to be a proper descending trend line, and the downtrend has to be supported by selling. Okay, that's what a downtrend is. A downtrend isn't just price action making lower lows where you can connect a descending trend line. Most people use that as a way to determine a trend. That's not how we do that, okay? Because logically, this is not a downtrend. A downtrend has to have major supply in play, it has to create a structure to the downside, and there has to be supply being created by the banks on that time frame. Okay. All right, my friend, is this the chart you were asking for? You were asking about, sorry. Okay, so that's looking pretty good for a move to the downside. I think there's a good chance that we could get down here to the monthly target at 131. Good chance. I don't see any reason why. A weekly time frame would need to remove this area of demand. Once price comes down here, we could see a daily area of supply being created here as it breaks through that weekly, and we could have a short trade. Yeah, it was US dollar. Okay, perfect. We could get a short trade. I'd like to get in early before that big move, because once it starts breaking through that weekly area of demand, you know, it's like breaking through a dam. Once you break through a dam, price tends to move very quickly, just like the waters through a dam moves very quickly. So that could be what's going on here. Okay, Bitcoin. Bitcoin making a serious move. We were talking about this one yesterday. Look at this big move. Do you see what's going on here? You see that big move? You realize that Bitcoin just surpassed the previous high here. Remember, we previously wrote most likely a reversal from here. I mean, come on, guys. Okay, how much more accurate and could I have gotten with that determination? It was just ridiculous. It was just totally ridiculous. And that was when price was just surpassing 100K. I wrote that. Okay. I reached this target through specific analysis that we were doing on one of the time frames. We did it live with members. And I said, based on this chart analysis, 109 is likely going to be where price is going to reverse from. And that's exactly where it reversed from. So we just penetrated through this area of supply. Whether or not it's going to be broken, it's yet to be determined. We penetrated through it yet, but we're not, this candle hasn't closed yet. We still have 6 hours and about 18 minutes until this candle closes. So we won't know for certain whether or not this supply has been taken out. Okay, so we're going to have to be patient and watch. But if it is taken out, we're going to look to see if there's any institutional demand that's causing the removal of the supply. And if there is, it could be a good area to get into a long position. Okay. We know that on the short term, they are buying. We had institutional demand being created here on the daily time frame. Price came up, dropped into institutional demand, and then went. You see the reaction from supply. Okay, stays sideways, and then big push to the upside. A lot of orders there to go long. I'm sure of it. I'm sure there was a lot of orders to go long there, just above the previous high. And that's retail traders being lured into buying because they think once the previous highs are taken out that it's just going to shoot up because it's written in textbooks. Well, listen, guys, the banks know what you're reading in those textbooks, okay? And believe me, they're going to use it against you. So their algorithms are programmed to take price past previous highs and then retrace them and stop you out. Okay, it's just how it works, right? So, so I'd be patient with that one. It could be setting up, but I think it's too early to really tell. This price action here on the daily chart is not good looking. And on the weekly time frame, we have to wait. This hasn't really produced anything yet. Okay, we have to wait. We could be getting institutional demand here, but I think it's a little bit too early to tell. Okay, meaning that if price was to consolidate here and then eventually drop, that could be the next launching pad. Okay, at the highs, they're going to lure retail traders into going long, then they'll stop them out, and then they'll retrace price. And then when everybody thinks it's going to tank, they're going to sell short, and then the banks will come in with buying. It's likely going to happen. Okay, so I'll be paying attention to that as well. Now, I've closed some trades in my personal portfolio, locked in some profits. I don't know how many of you got into the Tesla trade, but I gave that to you in the Telegram chat, and I also posted it on my X platform. I gave you the whole trade from the beginning to the end, everything laid out for you. I gave you my entry, my stop loss, my targets. I told you when I got out. I told you why I got out, how I managed the trade. I showed you how I managed the trade. Any of you get into that one? And the reason why I'm getting out is because we have the markets contacting supply, and we're contacting supply here on Tesla. So I'm interested to ride this one even higher. But why not lock my profits in if I know that there's a very good chance we're going to see a drop in price, right? So there's a very good chance we're going to see a drop in price, considering the markets are inside supply as well. So I'll wait for it to drop, and then when it starts to build a new foundation, I will get back in. Okay, on the daily time frame, this is basically the trade. Got in here, added to my position later, and then rode it all the way up here. Stop loss was just down here the whole time, okay? So as you can see, when you know where the institutions are buying, you know where to put your stop losses, okay? I could ride through all of this the whole time. I could ride through it all, knowing that my stop was in the perfect spot, okay? Right down there, because my stop was just below their institutional buying zone. Plain and simple. That's it. Very simple. Locate the buying and selling. Locate the zone that they're likely going to reverse price from. Enter into your position. Put your stop loss below that zone and ride the wave. Hold on to your seats and ride the wave to the upside. Question. Do you think big banks are accumulating gold? CFTC shows they are taking profits on longs. This move up doesn't make sense. Good question. Let's open up the positions here on gold. So they recently took major profits. Everything makes sense. You just have to have the right perception, right? So I'll break it down for you. And if you've been watching our stuff that we've been posting on YouTube, you know that we've been explaining this whole situation each and every week for forever. I've been doing these videos for a long time. You can go back to the archive and take a look at the videos. But we knew that the banks were going to have to take profits on long positions because they were reaching a very aggressive size compared to where they have been in the past. Their maximum size for longs is 408,000. You know, they had previously reached, what was it, 387,000. So we knew that they were going to start taking some profits. In the process of taking some profits, they added some back, but never the amount that they reached previous. Then they took some profits and they added some back, but it wasn't the amount that they had prior to that. And now look at positions where they're at 238,000. So they could start reaccumulating a long position. That's not a problem. This is why we were looking for entering into a long position, because after they had brought their long positions to a reasonable amount, I knew it was very possible that they could just start accumulating a long position again. Now, the data is not showing us that they're accumulating a long position again, but the chart is, okay, because we know this weekly area of demand is a buying zone that they created. So it's very likely that they're going to drop price into demand, especially because we had a weekly uptrend with demand. Remember, I told you we have very specific ways of determining if there's an uptrend or not. And it's not just because there's an ascending trend line. It has to be supported by buying from the banks and there has to be demand from lower in the charts. And so this was a perfect example of that. So we talked about this weekly uptrend for many weeks now, when price was at the highs, that I was watching for a move down to the weekly demand zone to get into a long position, okay? And now we see the big push to the upside. So are they buying? Yeah, they are buying because they brought price down into institutional buying area, and this is what they do at institutional buying zones, okay? All right, so Tesla, I'm going to wait to see if it wants to drop. This has been removed. Very good. This was a key area that we were watching. And price could drop to that demand zone on the daily chart and then take off again. It would be, you'd have to watch for a signal off of that because, again, we have some strong selling taking place here, okay, because of the weekly supply zone. Ideally, we want to wait for weekly supply to be removed and then continue. But I'll also be watching this area of demand here on the daily time frame because we could see a long signal being produced from there. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a long signal being produced from there. All right, S&P 500. So we hit supply and now we are reacting. Okay, this is not by accident, folks. Price is not dropping right now by accident. It could be explained whatever way they want to explain it in the news, but this is an institutional selling area, okay, that we had mapped out, okay, back in March of this year. We had this drawn back in March of this year. So March, April, now we're in May, we're coming into that supply, and now we're getting that reaction, all right? So for there to be more upside, that area of supply needs to be removed. Otherwise, we expect selling to take place from there. That's just how it goes. Supply comes into play, you expect selling. Otherwise, if it gets removed, we expect buying. All right. So this is one of the reasons why I closed my Tesla long trade, because it was hitting supply, S&P was hitting supply. So it's kind of telling me expect a move to the downside. When we start seeing bullish momentum build, then I will be looking for entries. So over the next few days, I'm going to be focusing my attentions on stocks that are retracing and setting up by retracing to institutional buying areas. And then I'm going to be looking to add more stocks to my portfolio. So this one, okay, there. So that's what's going on with Nasdaq. Nasdaq doesn't have any supply, okay? It created demand. So, but if you look on the monthly time frame, we have this area. It's not the greatest area of supply, all right? When we're looking to draw supply and demand zones on the chart, we typically only want to focus on the highest quality areas because lower quality areas will be just traded through as if it didn't even exist, okay? Happens all the time. So we're looking for high quality areas. This is not high quality. So there's not much here, but it's still something to pay attention to. All right, so that's the Nasdaq. And the Dow is inside supply too. Look at the weekly time frame, okay? Look at the drop that we got from here. You have to recognize that if you get a major drop like this in the market, the origin of that drop, you're going to see a reaction from it, okay? It's just going to happen. So you don't really want to go long stock when you're inside a supply area. You want to go long stock when you're reacting from demand zones, and that's what we did when the S&P hit demand. We started going long stocks, and they worked out well. Okay, now we're at supply. This is where you take profits. It's where the banks take profits, so this is where you should be taking profits. You buy at the lows when they're in demand zones. The problem is most retail traders have no idea about supply and demand, and they don't know how to, Even if they did know about supply and demand, they'd have no idea how to even locate the supply and demand on the charts. So that's why they resort to buying something when it's going up, because they can see live that it's going up, and they sell when it's going down because they can see on the charts it's going down. But you have to change your thinking. If you want to be profitable in the markets, you have to buy after price has dropped, okay? And then it starts to shift momentum. But you have to know what time frame the demand zone is so that you know what time frame to watch for the momentum shift. If you don't know what time frame the demand is, then you have zero idea what time frame you need to watch for the momentum to shift. So, it's pretty simple, but, most traders are not thinking alongside that way. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. Supply. Um, the Russell looks like it just took out some supply on the weekly time frame, so that's not too bad. Remember I told you Russell was going to rally too? Um, Bonds not looking too healthy. It looks like the demand area here on the monthly time frame is going to be taken out, which sucks because I have a position and I could have gotten out previously at break even, but I was determined to hold on for a move higher, and that just is not taking place. So that's not too good. It'll likely be a loss on this position, but that's okay. I got a lot of dividends paid out to me. And I was thinking about doing the math because I've been holding this position since 2023, I think. And the dividends that I've been getting have been a lot. So it'll probably cover the loss. Probably even more. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to do the math, but it'll probably cover the loss that I'm looks like I'm about to take. So that's pretty good. Let's go through the Magnificent Seven if you guys want. I could take a break and look at your questions if you want. Do you do a COT report for Bitcoin? I don't. The reason being is I haven't found any strong evidence to support that the buying and selling that the banks are doing on and reporting on the commitment of traders report is of any use to me. Um, I've looked at the numbers and I've looked at price action, and it doesn't reveal anything to me. One second, guys. So I haven't seen anything good. I use the data because it's supposed to give me insight. Like, look at Bitcoin numbers, okay? They're always about even. So it's not really showing me anything. Bitcoin can rally, it could drop, but it's never really showing me anything. So it doesn't give me any special insight. So I don't use it really. Um, uh, Tesla. Oh, you didn't? Did you buy shares or margin? Yeah, I bought shares of Tesla. I had shares of Tesla. US dollar Japanese yen volume on my FX book has dried up. Volume has dried up. What's retail traders at right now? Where's my FX book? Here we go. Let me see what retail traders are up to. Retail traders looks like 36% short, 64% long. Nothing special. I haven't seen anything really interesting with the retail sentiment lately. U.S. Swiss, they're majorly long. That's one thing that's sticking out to me right now. 90%. They're getting in long as price drops, which tells me there could be a short-term move to the upside. But other than that, I haven't really been seeing anything of interest in the retail sentiment. Okay. Do you still see Dixie going lower? Yeah, I do. I think there's a very good chance that it'll go lower. Short-term selling with daily supply in play. Yeah. The only thing is that we are reacting from medium-term buying here, okay? So we have to determine, okay, this is the key thing. Let me break down the logic for you here because this is important. If you don't understand these concepts, you're going to have a hard time timing an entry here. We are reacting from demand. Weak RSI, but does that mean, number one, that price is going to eventually break through? Or does it mean that it needs to come back down, produce a stronger RSI for an eventual move to the upside? Okay. So it's one of those two situations. You have to know which one. Can we use the lower time frames to help? Yeah, sure. I think one thing that I'll be doing is I'll be paying attention to gold and watching that area of supply being removed. Okay, we talked about that earlier in the session. So once the session's done, I advise that you go back and watch the session from the beginning and see what I was talking about with respect to gold. Okay. Um, Apple contacted demand rallied. We have major institutional supply here. If Apple's going to go higher, it needs to take out this area of supply. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. Okay. Amazon made a nice move to the upside, broke through supply, hitting the other supply above it, and making a move to the downside. I think we're going to see new highs on this one soon. And it could be from this area here. Good chance of it. Hard to say, but I can watch for a signal down here. And then I'll know once price gets down here if it wants to shift momentum to the upside. Again, knowing what zones are in play and what time frames to look at is pivotal, because if you don't know that, how are you going to time a trade? I don't know how people are doing it, to be honest with you. I have no idea. I see what they're saying, but you know, the logic is not strong, in my opinion, because you could see whatever you want to see. You could look at Amazon monthly time frame and get a long signal. You could look at the weekly time frame and get a short signal. You could look at the daily time frame and get no signal. And you could look at the 2-hour chart and get a short signal. Which one do you do? How long do you hold the trade for? Where's the target going to be? Where's your stop loss going to be? I mean, you know, you need to know what's going on with price. You need to know what time frame is in play and what the banks are doing, so you can time your entries with what the banks are doing. Otherwise, you can't hold on to a trade for any long period of time. And this is why retail traders get in, they get out, and they get in, they get out. They take any little profit they can. You know, I'm trying to risk one to reach 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 risk to reward. All right. That's why I can afford to get into a position once or twice and not pay hundreds of dollars in brokerage fees and ride the wave. Okay. I can take losses by testing out different theories and ideas and not get hurt, because my overall portfolio still grows with these big risk to reward trades. Google, look at Google. It reacted to demand down here. So this is institutional buying taking place, and now they rallied price up into supply. So now the question is, are they going to hold this supply, or are they going to break it through? If they break it through, then guess what happens with price? Rallies up. How many traders know that? Hardly anybody knows that. I know that, and I'm sharing that with you. The reason why I'm sharing that with you is because I want you to watch what happens when that supply zone gets taken out. What happens with price, okay? That is the key area that needs to be watched. Meta, look at the monthly time frame. This is important, okay? Demand, now up in supply, we're stuck here. Going to be stuck in a range. So we need this range to be broken through, and then price will build momentum. So right now it's not ideal for me to trade it. Microsoft is shooting like a rocket. And we had the long signal. Remember this one? Came down into monthly demand. What time frame do you have to look for the signal? Daily. And look, RSI very weak. But the second drop, boom, RSI at 40. And look, it shot like a rocket. Okay? Nvidia, also another long signal. Beautiful. Plain as day. Came down into monthly demand, which I was talking about for the longest time and showing it to you way before price dropped into it. First dip into that zone, RSI very weak. They built momentum by buying. RSI at 40 on the last drop down, and then it shot up like a rocket. Okay? No surprise. Let's take a look at the weekly time frame. Okay, it broke through supply, so now we have institutional demand coming into play here. So we know that demand is the driving force here on the weekly time frame, and price is stalling at the highs. So if price was to come down here, guess what? Guess what do you think is going to happen? With a high degree of certainty, a very high degree of certainty. Okay, this is the weekly time frame. It's one time frame down from the monthly. The monthly is already in play. So the next zone, one time frame down, is the weekly. Once that comes into play, it's very likely going to shoot up like a rocket. Okay, so you set your alerts, wait for the signal, bada boom, bada bing, done. Tesla hit supply, so you see the weakness coming into play now. I got out here, see the weakness coming in here, all right? So these were the signs that I was looking at with the S&P hitting supply, supply being hit on the weekly time frame. I'm going to wait for it to drop. I'm going to set my alert now so I don't miss it. And hopefully I'll be home and not out and about with the family when this happens. Once per bar, message. Daily demand zone is about to be reached. Watch for long signal off of the 1 hour time frame. And that's it. Set my alerts. Bingo bango. And that's it, my friends. What do you think about that? Is that pretty good? Did I load you up with enough information? I hope I did. Hope it was helpful. Hope it was useful. Hope it brings a little bit of clarity as to what's going on here and what I'm looking at and why I'm looking at it and the thinking behind the moves. And yeah, I think I will leave you at that. Thanks for joining me for another session. I really appreciate it. And if you got something out of this and you appreciate the videos that I do for you, please consider subscribing. Hit the like button on the video. You know the whole spiel. And that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day. You take care. Have a good one, everybody.